going on with me continuing to hit the mute button, but I'm going to move my mouse far over to the side. I was saying that prior to me introducing Carol, because I definitely want to introduce her and give you guys her background and expertise, I did want to allow Catherine to speak for a moment. I don't know if you wanted to talk about the behavioral health workforce just briefly, and I'm going to turn it over to Catherine to do that, and then I'll introduce Carol and we'll get started.
Great, thanks, Pam. Yeah, good morning, everybody. So as Pam mentioned, I work in our training program at the college, and then I'm also part of the Behavioral Health Workforce Center, which this topic is a really hot button for a lot of people right now, is how to support our students. And so one of our initiatives at the Workforce Center is really focusing on the preparation of students and how do we kind of look at the field placement experience as well as the classroom experience to make sure that our students are entering the field well prepared and ready to start as social workers. So if you have any questions about that or would like to get involved with any of that project, feel free to shoot me a message and I'd be happy to reach out. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Catherine. That behavioral health workforce center is key in training and preparing our future social workers. So I'm going to move on to introducing Carol right now at this time. So Carol is one of our field liaisons, and she has been with Jane Addams for some time. She's just a valuable member of our team. She's been with Jane Addams School of Social Work for 9 years, and she has 9 years of experience mentoring and supporting MSW students in their field placements. She brings with her a comprehensive background in child welfare, having spent 19 years in the field in progressively responsible roles, including case manager, starting out as that case manager, moving on to supervisor, moving on to be a program director. Like, how could she do all that? She looks so young. She started as a baby. Okay. She has facilitated multiple LCSW supervision groups, provided clinical guidance and leadership to emerging social work professionals. And throughout her career, Carol has demonstrated a strong commitment to professional development, reflective practice, and the advancement of social work education. And I will go on to add, she is a key advocate for our students, but definitely holds them to high, rigorous expectations and works to make sure they are strong professionals when they graduate from our program. And with that being said, I'm going to turn it over to Carol for her presentation.
Thanks, Pamela. That was really nice. I appreciate it. Well, welcome everyone. We decided on supervision for a couple of reasons. One, it was the most requested from all of you and from previous trainings that we've had and everything like that about future trainings and interests and things like that. But then also it's obviously a really important aspect of the work that you do with our students and everything. And also hoping that this will also, for some of you that are not just supervising students, but supervising other staff and everything like that, hoping that you can transfer a lot of things that I'll be talking about today and that we'll be talking with each other in regards to being able to do those skills and everything. So without further ado, I'm going to share my screen so you can see my lovely PowerPoint. All right. All right, so we're going to be talking today about supervising to increase student success. But as I said, I'm really hoping that for those of you who also supervise other individuals and everything like that, that this will be able to be helpful to you too in other ways that you are providing that great service of supervision and everything like that. And we all know that many of you are here also because of the new requirement for supervision as part of what you need to be doing to bring for those CEUs and everything like that. So I do understand that there's a vast reasons for why you're here today and everything, but hoping that I can help give you some resources and some guidance and everything like that into how to helping you with this part of your job as a supervisor. All right, so I'm having an issue with wording my PowerPoint. There we go. Okay, so briefly, here's our agenda. We're going to briefly talk about goals of supervision, I'm going to talk about structuring to help to encourage student growth and everything. And I'm going to try to give you as many practical strategies and tools and everything like that that I have either used or encountered or have heard back from ways from the many years of meeting with each and many of you all and what you do to help support students. And then part of that will also be talking about encouraging self-reflection and managing bias as part of those practical strategies. And then also we're going to talk about group supervision because that was also something that was brought up as a really important aspect because many of you may be doing group supervision. So I'm going to start with first, if everybody could put in the chat, what type of supervision are you providing? Are you providing individual, just group only, or individual and group? So I can kind of have an idea of what everybody is kind of doing, so I can kind of provide some guidance and kind of focus on what it looks like for everyone. And my guess is we're going to have a combination of all three, but just wanted to look into what everybody's doing. Individual and group, individual. So it looks like most of everybody here is doing individual, and some of you are doing individual and group. So at the end, I will be talking about group aspects because it is possible that in the future you will be providing group, or you may be someone who, if you have your LCSW, you may be providing LCSW supervision to a group of staff and everything like that to help that, because we know when we have students going out for graduation and everything, that's one of the things a lot of them are looking for, is being able to receive that LCSW supervision. And sometimes the organizations utilize group format in order to get that and stuff like that. So that's great to see. And so then my next question for you, if I can figure out how to get this, I don't know why oh, there we go. How many years have you been supervising? So that may be just supervising students, or maybe supervising students and staff and everything like that. You're welcome to include both in there, just kind of get an idea of how much vast experience we have here and everything like that, because I'm going to try to engage as many of you as possible, because I do not have all the answers and haven't learned every single trick to the trade and everything like that, and hope that you all will be willing to share some of your great ideas that you've experienced and things like that. So, many of you first time. That's awesome. So hopefully this will be really helpful and kind of set you up for great success as you go through your social work career and supervising either students or staff and everything like that. But we do have some of you that have been, 50 years. Wow, Yolanda, we're definitely gonna have to listen to you during this, so be prepared. Everything. All right. Well, that is great to see. All right. So briefly, I just kind of want to talk about some of the goals of student supervision and everything like that. Ethics and boundaries obviously is a big portion of what we want students to learn as they become professional social workers. Connecting those social work competencies to practice, that is ethics and boundaries is obviously the number one part of the competencies and everything, but there's obviously many, 9 of them, and all of you will probably be very in tune to them based on the learning plan, and soon to be doing that semester evaluation where you'll go back to reflecting on all those different competencies that the students are utilizing and you are as a social worker yourself. Client welfare. So based on what type of service there's obviously, we want to make sure that the clients are getting, are treated well and getting the support and the services that they need and everything. And that is part of supervision. Accountability for what the students and staff, what your staff may be doing while they're working with and doing things independently outside of your presence and everything. Performance evaluation, which that's we got that coming up for students. It's that semester evaluation. That part of that is performance evaluation. Also with the time to kind of reflect on all those experiences that they're having throughout the semester. And then obviously professional development and your social work identity, everything like that. And I know this one is sometimes often most challenging and everything, is that I know many of you have the students come to you and have a vast array of how much experience they have working. So some students who came to the MSW program straight from college may have only had time to be working with a few things, or doing customer service at target or whatever, things like that. And then we have some students who are coming back, changing careers. Some of our students already have masters in different degrees and everything like that. So there's a vast array of what they're coming to and how they see them as professional selves as they're coming forward to work with you and everything like that. So part of that supervision time is going to be building and helping them become the best they can as a professional social worker. Because when they leave you, many of them will be heading out into the field and be representing and future field instructors for us. All right, so I'm going to talk a bunch about structuring supervision. Obviously we want to encourage growth in our students as much as possible in all those different ways that we just talked briefly about in supervision. Now, before I start there, did anybody realize want to put in the chat anything else that they think of when they think of other goals that they see for themselves as what they need to accomplish during their supervision time that I did not mention? I want to make sure that I address anything or talk about anything or add anything that would be helpful. Yeah. Anybody have any additional things? And feel free, if I'm completely open to you, like putting your camera on and talking, if that is better than putting things in the chat. I know the chat is convenient, but not always is able to write as much detail and everything like that. So well, as we go through it, if you do think of other things that you like utilize teaching skills, thanks, Mandy, teaching skills pertinent to the job, such as goal writing, SDS. Yeah, that is true. When supervisees need therapy, that does come up. Yes, we, especially with most of our students being in at the age they are, and with the amount of change that happened in their life during so many of them are in their 20s, where mental health really comes into play, and they're under a lot of stress and managing a lot of different things between work and school, and just learning about like just the hard things. And the political climate right now is not helping anybody's mental health. So definitely. So those are great things to bring to the table to think about and talk about.
I have something, Carol.
I don't know why my thing will not advance when I like to. There we go. Okay, so structural
Carol?
clinical supervision. Now I put these down and I did a bullet point specifically because
I'm sorry to interrupt. I know
we
Tina
can't. Pamela,
was
are you
trying to
talking?
get a word in a couple times.
Just if you could touch a little bit on, I know we've had, separate
Okay, what should
conversations
I
about
have? Hold
this.
on.
But students who,
Oh, supervisory need therapy. Okay.
students who
Okay.
feel.
All right. So I put in
I don't think she-
bullet points, listing everything, intentionally not as an order to how you should do things. When I say structure is more so kind of things that you want to include during that supervision time and everything like that. It doesn't necessarily mean have to be in this order. And the importance of each area may change based on the time of year, whether you're like orienting someone in the beginning of the school year, or if they're like really, really into like needing a lot of extra support regarding a client emergency or things like that come up. But these are just things that I want you to each consider when you're structuring, when you have your time and everything like that with your students. So task supervision is the day-to-day activities. So some of you may also be having a task supervisor. And so similar to like what a task supervisor may do, if you're the only like field liaison, then or field instructor at the time or anything like that, you will be that person doing all that task supervision. But that's a day-to-day activities, like what is expected of them, making sure they're getting the information in and everything like that is necessary for paperwork, just kind of keeping things moving forward throughout the school year, whether for clients, whether based on their learning plan and things like that. And so then there's time. We always want to make sure that we're having a time for students to bring examples of their experiences and everything like that. And this is gonna be really easy for some students and not easy for others. And I've seen this discussion during some of the site visits that I've been having and everything in regards to some of the students come with great examples of all the different things they have done during the week and everything, and will come with lots of questions into the supervisory time and everything like that. But then there's other students that have a harder time, and you ask them a question and you get a response that's like a 1 word or 2 word answer and everything like that. And you're trying to like pull out from them what's going on to kind of extend that amount of time you're spending with them during that time each week and everything. So we're going to talk, I'm going to share some tools and everything like that to help with some of those student challenges with students who may not be able to kind of bring those examples of their experience and everything. So we're going to talk some practical things in a little bit about ways that that'll be helpful with that. Sharing positive feedback and strengths. We want to make sure that students are always hearing about what they are doing well and everything like that. Even if it's small things, especially in the beginning when they're learning new things, and utilizing our strength-based training and everything as social work and stuff, but they need to continue to be hearing that positive feedback and what they are doing well and everything like that, because then it makes it easier for that, like, last bullet point is sharing constructive feedback throughout the semester and everything like that regarding things they need to work on and everything, whether it's work on things that are more professional or work on things that are more like client facing or challenges with paperwork and things like that, because they need to be hearing those things throughout their time working with you. We don't want it to be a big surprise of like, oh, in your semester evaluation, yeah, you've been doing great this semester, but they haven't been told that all semester and are feeling like anxious and not sure if they're doing what they need to be doing. Also, we don't want them to be hearing for the first time in their semester evaluation the hard things. So, like, you're really struggling with doing, these certain 1, 2, 3, whether it be paperwork or feedback on professionalism and things like that. We want them to hear that along the way, and that also helps build this positive relationship between the two of you when they're hearing positive. They're realizing you have a positive regard for them while also helping them to have that professional growth. Supporting building new skills in students and everything. And I'm also going to give some examples in how to do that and everything like that, how to build on those skills in a little bit. But in this one, we really want to be like teaching them those new skills, like in the beginning of orientation time and everything like that. A lot of times maybe like, oh, you need to know how to fill out this paperwork and things like that. And those are skills they're going to have to do no matter what type of social work they decide to do after they graduate. But then also building new skills on like the people skills, the engagement skills and everything like that. And so, whether that's through role play and different ways that we'll talk about in a few minutes and everything, but really wanting a portion of that to be constantly throughout the whole year building on those new skills. And utilizing the learning plan at this point is a great opportunity and a great way to remind yourself, or like, hey, these are areas where we really want to help build them on their skills and stuff like that. And so it's going to range for students based on their experience from previous jobs and everything, and where they're coming out, what other internships they may have had and everything, whether that building skills may be more professionalism is starting in the beginning of the school year and may move more to a clinical like engagement with clients and things like that. It may be building the skills of like hiding their facial expressions in regards to when they're hearing hard things, or whether they're, like when they're surprised and everything like that, things like that, and giving them tips on how to like engage with difficult topics with your clients that you're working with. And then we always want to make sure that there is time for students to bring questions. And this is similar. I wanted to piggyback similar to the bringing examples, that this is going to be hard for some students and everything like that. Some students aren't used to know, like they've never had clinical supervision before. Oftentimes, if they've only done retail or whatever, it's basically all task supervision that they've always received, and not other supervision to help on different other aspects of their growth and everything. So teaching them ways to like help them to be able to ask questions and everything may in the beginning, and you may be experiencing this now in this beginning part of the year, is that may bring some challenges to you as you try to like come up with ways to get them to engage more in their learning during that time of supervision and everything. So has anybody like think of any other ways or any other things that they add to their structure and things like that regularly with their students that may be helpful for other things? I have a question in here. If you could touch on helping students understanding the broad scope of social work practice, medical social work, therapy, etc. Yeah, so yeah, I think that if I'm understanding what you're saying, Tina, I would say that some of that is talking to students kind of about interdisciplinary kind of work and everything like that. And obviously, some of you are in field placements where there is a lot more interdisciplinary, like whether you're in a hospital or like a community-based organization that provides that has a clinic and things like that, where you're bringing lots of different people into that, but just kind of talking with students about the different ways that like social workers show up in the population and everything like that. Like now, I mean, we're having more and more social workers that are running for state representative and Senate and things like that. And then we've got obviously you brought up medical social work and therapy, just talking about kind of what the different opportunities are and everything like that, which one way to also do is allowing students to also be shadowing in other departments and everything like that for a day, whether that means like meeting with a psychiatrist who comes in once a month to like write scripts and things like that, or providing additional training from outside providers that can kind of like engage the students, showing what other things that you can do as a social worker. Assisting students with career versus a job. Yeah, those are great. That's part of that like professionalism side of things in regards to really trying to share those skills that are going to be transferable for a lifelong of like building relationships and everything like that. And like who you work with now as your colleague may be your future potential supervisor at another job or hiring for the position and things like that. So definitely that like career forward is definitely a great way to look at that and stuff. So all right, so here's the scenario. Your strength as a supervisor lies in being a task manager. So this is just an example. This may or may not be you. You're promoted to your position because you excel at getting things done. Now you are supervising a student. The strength is how they reflect on every interaction with clients, but who is struggling with paperwork. What are some ways that you can build on each other's strengths while strengthening your role as a clinical supervisor and their ability to balance client work and necessary paperwork, everything like that? Because we are all not stellar at every skill, as you all know, and everything. So what are some ways that like help do that balance and everything like that when your student is different than you in how you learn and how you interact with kind of your work? Feel free if a couple of you want to like come on camera and do that, that would be great. It's easier than chat probably. Any suggestions? Any of you have that experience where you're very different than how your student learns and interacts with their work that they do as a student? Anybody?
Yeah, I
No,
can.
nobody's at that. I'm surprised.
I'll
Can
take
you
a
hear
look
me?
at it. Something that I kind of really like
I'm not
find
hearing.
challenging. Are you hearing me okay?
Is anybody, hold on.
I
How
can hear
about-
you.
Can you hear me okay? Okay.
I can
My
hear
name's
Kamal.
Kamal.
Carol, I'm not sure if it's yours
Hi.
or something.
Something that I kind of find challenging is like I have my own therapeutic
Okay,
voice,
so I think
right?
now maybe.
Sure. Are we good? Sure.
Carol,
I have my own
think
therapeutic voice, and I have my own style and how I do things, and my own kind of like chaos, right? And how I manage my own chaos and how I keep myself in line. And that works for me, right? It's not going to always work for everybody, and everyone has their own kind of dynamic. And within that, I find it kind of sometimes finding to give myself agency and kind of like stop, you know, pause for a moment and realize that I'm not educating someone that is me. You know what I mean? It's like really just taking yourself out that time and being able to like really just find out if they're a visual learner, asking them the right questions. What is the most effective way that we can be able to, get our processes down packed here and get the, cultural competency aspect of what we're trying to accomplish? Is it more of like, are you a visual person? Is this, would you like to shadow or, because I'm more visual. I like to be hands-on with my training, and really kind of maintaining myself and holding myself accountable. So I know that with some interns, it's a little different in how they organize themselves. And I kind of like have to take myself into account where I'm like, okay, not everybody's you, you know, and it's like really holding yourself accountable and saying, hey, you know, the human aspect of it, moving on from it, and then being able to ask the right questions to be able to accommodate the student that you're trying to train.
Yeah, thanks, Kamal. Can everybody hear me now? I was having an audio issue, I think. Okay, great, great.
I wanted to share a little
Yeah.
bit. So I have my intern at both my buildings with me because I'm a traveling school social worker, right? And I have the largest caseload at my district as social worker. So I work in a bit of organized chaos that I've been doing for the last 10 years that I don't have to keep explaining to somebody what I'm doing. But I realized that my intern learns kind of the same way I do by watching. And so I was worried because I keep checking in with her, like, okay, because I'll write something or send her an email or text her and stuff like this when I think about something to remember to let her know, just because I felt like I went to UIC and the only part that I didn't like was my field instructor, the person that I had as my supervisor, did not help me learn how to do practice. That was something that I had to do on my own. And being a school social worker doesn't just mean that you have to be a social worker, you have to be an educator as well. And so making sure that I'm teaching both of those parts and the special education part of it, because again, I went through the program and that's one of the only things that I don't think is good enough is the preparing school social workers to be special educators, because that is what we are. We are school social workers and special educators. And so that she came to me, I wanted to say, she came to me and was like, I love that I get to watch you and do stuff. Basically, she's a sponge, so she's soaking it up. So she likes to see me sit in with groups because she is a social worker already. She's a master's level when she came back to get her school endorsement. She's learning how to deal with the student behaviors and managing classrooms and those type of things is the things that she's struggling with. So you can't talk a person about that. You have to show them. So I think a lot of modeling is very, very helpful for our interns.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, well, thanks for like recognizing that, you know, it's not how we educate the students and stuff like that is not perfect and everything, and seeing where there was a need and just making sure that you're able to kind of move forward with that and everything like that. I see Roxana has a hand up.
Hello. So
Hi.
I was so how we at our agency help like interns develop that like admin skill. We have a separate documentation group that all interns and new staff attend. So it's like they have a separate little pod that and another supervisor that oversees that. But yeah, during our one-on-one meetings, this is where I can kind of I have provided like, here's my outline of how I kind of structure myself and hope like, and there's that flexibility for them to tailor it or make it work for their learning like style too. And hopefully like with, you know, this relationship, they can kind of ask questions to try to troubleshoot like their development of like how to complete certain those like day-to-day tasks. Because there's some tasks that like don't happen frequently, and that's where I see the drop off of like, yeah, you're right, you're not going to remember how it's supposed to go. So this is where I come in, or this is also where like, where do you save your information? How do you need to refer back to that? Like, what else do you need to feel confident in doing that? So you know, that like negotiation.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's great. And I appreciate that, like having that special like when it comes to that paperwork, because some of the positions have a stronger like requirement for paperwork and have documentation load than other placements and everything like that. And having that separate ability to kind of work with students on that, I think can be really helpful to students and stuff. So okay, all right. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna go back to sharing my screen. I technology is not I'm okay with it, but not superb when it comes to this going back and forth thing. So I'm doing my best here. All right. Okay. So I'm not going to go through the other side of things. It says, what if the tables are turned and supervisor strength is reflection and the student focus on task? Because I think some of the examples that were brought up with the additional extra like documentation stuff really does help focusing on those task things and everything like that if the student is more of a person that reflects and everything like that, but like making sure that students have that time to be able to get both sides of things, even if it's not, and being cognizant of your ability to provide that additional support and everything like that, like if that's not your go-to as like how you are as a person and everything. So all right, so here we go again with there we go. All right, so now we're going to get into a lot of like practical supervision strategies. So I'm going to share quite a handful of things like that. Some of them I'll give you links to and show on my screen and everything like that. I also want to, if you do have some like a specific tool or something that you're willing to share and everything like that, feel free to like pin it on your computer and you can share it in the chat or something like that when we get to the end of this section and stuff. Because it's like my thing is a lot of times just having a lot of options for you, because what it looks like and what you need additional like support and everything like that is going to differ from obviously from person to person and like student to student, where this year maybe this is not it's a good connection. You and your student think similarly. You kind of have, they like to bring lots of questions and everything to supervision, and you have a robust hour of supervision each week. Next year, the student may look different, and the student may be a quiet student who isn't used to having to ask questions and bring things to the table and everything like that. And some of these tools may be helpful for the future. So you may want to keep that in mind as you go through, as we go through some of these. Okay, so the first one I want to kind of talk about is like a supervision template. Now, what I'm going to do is I am going to share one of these with you, and so that you can kind of see an example, and I'll give you the link and everything like that of a way you can do this. You can utilize this one. We'll share this, and you can add this to your repertoire, or create something that's slightly different based on what you feel like it makes most sense for you and everything like that. But this is like a supervision template. So this is helpful especially for the students who like aren't really like maybe great for students and you who are not great at knowing like what we all should go over during supervision each week and everything like that. And so it's a great thing to like jot down, like they can come prepared with the form and everything like that, filling out in like different ways in which they want to bring examples and things like that, strengths and successes for the week. So once again, focusing on those strengths and everything like that and letting them see their strengths and everything. Because I find, some of the students, when we meet for the site visit and they talk about what they're doing and everything, they'll be like, I'm just doing this, not realizing that this just skill that they have now is building up into being way more than just, and that those skills they're going to learn and gain for like a lifetime of success. It talks about challenges and obstacles, current projects I'm devoting my time to. So it's, this one is a great one for like if you've got students who are doing lots of different things for maybe different programs and different people and everything like that. Obviously this question doesn't make as much sense if the student is working with 6 clients doing individual therapy, but you can like update this to see what makes the most sense. Maybe one of them is about like what specific kind of tools they're using for therapy this week and everything like that. What worked for them, what didn't work for them and everything. Their biggest concern for the upcoming week, like maybe they're worried about a client, or maybe they're, worried about the fact that their SNAP benefits aren't coming in, and that we've got to go to basic necessities and focus on them taking care of themselves more so than being able to help the clients and things like that. So just kind of have them have a pinpoint. So you have a starting point. What's next steps? This is something they can fill out as they're going along, meeting with you. And questions for, hey, is there things that my supervisor can help me with and everything like that throughout this week? And then we always, it's like, we always want to connect as much as possible to the work they're doing in school, the competencies discussed, or it could be like maybe the assignments that they worked on and everything like that. So that is definitely one example and everything like that that you can utilize, and I think is helpful for students who are really do have a little bit more of a struggle, or you have a struggle of coming up with like, okay, what are we going to talk about for this hour that I'm meeting with you each week and everything like that, because I'm not really sure, what to do. All right, so then going back to my list, the next one is role playing and everything like that. And many of you who have been through social work school may get a little cringe or a stomach drop or whatever of the feelings they felt in class when they had to do this and everything like that. But I will say, whether you want to call it role playing or just kind of like, hey, let's just play out the scenario kind of thing, or forward thinking on what could happen, however you want to word it, that maybe may not cause like trauma to you if you had bad experiences in your grad school program or anything like that. But ways where they can actually practice kind of what their skills are going to be. And it may be something for and a lot of times it could be used for things like that you're not able to see. And like, for instance, if you're not able to go, like if there are students doing one-on-one therapy and the practice in the organization is not to have the supervisor in the room with the client and everything like that, it may be time to kind of talk about, like, okay, we need to have a difficult conversation, or I need to practice this particular skill and everything like that. It could be practicing, like, what if you have a client that states that they want to harm themselves and everything like that? What do you say? What could the client be saying? And kind of go back and forth between what that dialogue could look like. It also could be ways to practice professionalism and everything like that, and kind of evaluate like their biases in the way they communicate with the clients and everything like that. And kind of when whether you've noticed things or maybe you haven't noticed, but want to make sure that they are able to have conversations that do not cause harm to the clients based on the language that they use during that interaction and everything. So those are a few of the examples. Does anybody have any other examples of role playing that has worked really well with students that they have done before? It's come up in a couple of my site meetings, but I'm not going to call those. I'm not sure if you're on the on the call or not, or anything like that, if you want to give some of those examples, but I know a couple of the sites are doing this already. Yeah, I will be sharing the links in the template. Yep, I'm going to do that in a minute. Any thoughts on the role playing? Has anybody had any positive experiences with what that's looked like?
We've done like role playing for like the intakes and what to expect when someone's coming into therapy. We've opened up a clinic in our community here over at Arab American Family Services, and we've opened it to Middle Eastern population, which there are some stigmas. There are people that might come in with, some biases, some opinions of what it feels like to get mental health, services, and kind of giving them the runaround a little bit of what is it like when someone's not cooperative, right? And really seeing the versatility of being able to see how they are faced with those challenges has been something that's eye-opening, especially for me, as someone that's kind of watching it, because we do like to like kind of like give them the opportunity to be the person that's doing the intake, and then also being the person that's like absolutely like the client, right? And a lot of the times they do get it gets them to think critically about what the expectation looks like and really what material to go over and how important it is to kind of go over all these rules, whether it's HIPAA, going through the informed consent, and just making sure that they are touching on that base. But when it's like when you're role playing, sometimes it can be a difficult client, and seeing them kind of go through it, it does bring me back to my days at Aurora. You were 100% dead right when you said the word cringe. I felt it. But it is true. Like it's nice seeing it, and then also we always learn something new. So I do enjoy that very much here.
Oh, great. Yeah, I see in the a couple in the we role play safety risk assessments. Yes. Roxana says I've done a mock mental health assessment session where the intern is a client and I apply the organizational tool I use to help me in the session, but also to complete the progress note. Then we have time to discuss the mock session. Those are some great suggestions and everything, and making role playing, whether you use the words or not and everything like that, as a great way to kind of help the student feel more prepared and kind of and listen to themselves and get feedback, active feedback on how they're saying it, and how they're sounding to someone else and everything. Next, we're going to talk about process recording. So this has really kind of gone out of style a little bit, but I'm hoping it comes back because I think it's really a really important tool and everything. I'm going to be sharing. I don't know how to like share and then change what I'm sharing. That's what I've not mastered. So sorry about that. All right, we're gonna go to process recording. All right, so this is the I have developed a process recording because I was trying to find one online that wasn't like too specific to something specific and everything like that. So I ended up developing my own. So I'm going to share the link to this one. So process recording, if all of you do not remember or didn't have this experience when you were in school and everything like that, is basically where a student or you or whoever is doing it basically is coming and reflecting on in great detail a specific interaction with a client and everything like that. So the client comes to the office, the student has this interaction. It could be anything from like it's a 10-minute interaction to it's a therapeutic session that goes for the entire like 15 minutes and everything. And so basically what they're going to be doing is talking about client information is basically, the general information about why they're there in the brief interaction. And then the second one is an detailed description of interaction. It is dialogue. They said this, I said this, they said this, I said this, kind of thing like that. And then it's going to continue. And then the student is going to step back and think about observation that they saw. So like the client was shaking their leg or could not make eye contact or, seem frustrated or whatever, things like that, the actual observations and stuff like that, which is obviously much more subjective and everything. Then it's going into the initial gut emotional response. So, it could be anything from like the student felt disgusted, the client just said something and they just cannot believe this client just said what they said and they felt disgust and we're just trying to make it through the rest of the session. It could be that they remembered something that similarly happened to them. It could be countertransference stuff. It could be all those different things that they're kind of experienced and everything like that, but just kind of talking about them emotionally and like how they felt in their body at that time. And then goes into the analysis section, which kind of is like kind of evaluating the whole scenario and everything like that. Like, did they think, it went well? Did they think they did not respond well? Did they utilize a theory and that totally did not work? Like cognitive behavioral therapy was not the right way to interact with this in this particular situation and everything like that. Did they realize they had a bias and that's what made them have that like gut reaction towards that was like a negative emotion and everything like that. And so then the last section is then kind of you and the student go over all this information or anything like that and just kind of like what is the feedback that you can provide for them and stuff like that. Whether that mean like, okay, maybe we need to do a role play kind of to see if that situation happens again, what could you do differently and everything. Is there something that maybe we can like talk or share some articles or readings in regards to those biases that they are realizing that they had and how to interact with the client in a more productive and more kind way next time and everything like that. But basically that's a format and a great way of kind of having them reflect on their experiences and everything and utilizing it as a way for growth and everything. So the next tool I want to talk about that one I found online, and I'm going to also share the website for where I found like all these random tools that you're free. It's called socialworkerstoolbox.com. Some of you may or may not be aware of it, but it did have some great, like a wide range of different kind of assessment tools, reflection tools, and everything like that. So I just chose one that I thought was really, really interesting, and they're all like willing to share and free for your resources and everything. So this is a self-care tool, and so basically the Spark, and I've heard of one or two placements utilize this self-reflection, prevention, assessment, resilience, resilience, kindness, and kind of really evaluating back to that, like reflecting on kind of your experiences and everything. And basically this goes through, it's like a check-in and everything like that, like, which is a great way. Maybe you want to utilize a check-in every time you meet with the students, like check in on how you're feeling, whether you want to do the feelings wheel for the moment and everything like that, like you would for some of your clients and stuff like that going into supervision. But anyways, checking in and kind of going through it. So basically you're like listing out these, like scaling all these different aspects of like how you're feeling with all the different things and stuff like that. It's everything from technology, which I will not rate high right now in my in my feelings towards technology, and everything. And some of you may feel it's Friday, so sleep may not be a great one for you and everything like that. Maybe tomorrow you'll be able to get some extra rest. But anyways, all those kind of things, and just kind of then it moves into prompts of like how to kind of talk about those different things during your time when you're meeting with the student and everything, and like how you can help build their resiliency to things as the things come up and everything. So I thought it was a really interesting tool, and everything is really guided and gives, you can utilize it really specific, like what the care plan and all that kind of stuff is, and go from there and everything. But I thought those were really great things. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I am going to share all of these. I have to move my box. Okay, share. Okay, so here is there is that tool, and then I'll go back and in a minute, I'll share the other two tools too that I have here. I can do that real quick. So that you don't have to see all that. And kind of can bookmark these if you want to. Do that. One more. Weekly supervision template. Please let me know if you are having issues with seeing them. Hopefully I did a practice round before and it worked, so hopefully it does it in real time this time too. So yeah, so those are those different tools and everything like that. So going back to my list and everything like that, so another great idea is discussion of an article or a book and everything like that. Some of you have utilized this as one of the things that you put into your learning plan regarding maybe a particular article that somebody in the organization wrote, or it could be an article that kind of brings up like the realities of what the impact on, Medicaid right now is, or SNAP benefits or things like that. Or it could be a book, just kind of valuing. And this can be something that you can do throughout, like, okay, at the end of the semester, you could do it by chapter and everything like that. Or if it's a smaller article and everything, kind of like this is a great way to kind of add on to the learning that you're doing with the student within that supervision time and everything like that. That is another helpful way to kind of make connection of expanding the learning, and them just to get used to having exposure to reading other things outside of school and everything that is helping building their learning, because we want that skill for a lifetime, that you're constantly having this eagerness to kind of gain knowledge and of things that are going on and everything. And especially as things change on a regular basis in social work in all different areas, it's a great way to keep up with that and kind of practice that skill. I tell all the students in the beginning of the semester to share their class syllabi with all their field instructors. So if you have not been getting the syllabi from your students, I highly recommend asking for that. It is a great way. I mean, it's obviously good for planning for like assignments and things like that, but it is also great for you being exposed to what they're learning about, and also being able to make those connections, especially if they're doing primarily like direct service work. Seeing their practice class syllabi may help you to help them to make those connections between policy and like direct service work and how that is impacted and everything. But those it's a great way to kind of like expand on those skills that they're learning in class and making those connections, and in the time that you're with them in your time with supervision. Case presentation. Now this one is we'll talk about this especially is great in group supervision, when you're providing group supervision, but we'll talk a little bit about that. But as far as for individuals, that still can be, you can still utilize this as as a way to be thoughtful in how the student is like aware ahead of time, like, hey, next week I want you to do a presentation to me on like everything about a particular client and everything, and just kind of your thought process and what you've been doing and working, and kind of seeing things in a big picture. Because oftentimes I know in supervision, if you're meeting weekly, you're going over like tidbits of like the treatment goals and tidbits of like maybe the skill development and different things, that task management kind of thing. But by doing a case presentation can have them kind of step back from their like week to week experience and kind of have a bigger picture, and also can help be like thought moving forward and everything like that. And maybe you'll utilize a role playing at the end of it to kind of go through like, okay, well, now we know what's going on now, what's going to happen in the future and everything. But kind of that presentation also helps them build that skill of being able to share their work and being able to, and the case present doesn't have to be just therapy. It can be presenting on a particular difficult case management client, or a difficult call they had on a crisis line, or with a student and everything like that. It can look different based on the placement. It doesn't just have to be, I think a lot of times case presentation is often thought of only for like working with students that are providing mental health services and therapy and everything, but that doesn't have to be the case. All right, so now that I have presented multiple kind of different potential tools and everything, does anyone else have any tools they'd either like to share in the chat or would like to kind of unmute yourself and put out there that have been really helpful to you in working with students? This is when we need Yolanda, 50 years of supervision. I'm just kidding. I'm not trying to put you on out there. Let's see. Joseph Tom says, I made a Google form checkpoint where I quiz my intern on things that may be covered with me or at her other placement to check for understanding recall. Sometimes they assume they know things when they have not learned them yet in class or in the field. Yeah, that's great. Especially in the beginning of the school year. You don't know where they're at in their like skill development and everything, and that what you want them to do with clients or students and things like that could be more advanced than where they have learned that skill in class. So that's a great way to do it and everything like that. So do you use like, so when you do the quiz, do you do like what is it, the Quizlet or something like that? It seems like something you could use in a school social work anyway. But anyway, let's see. Oh, you did a Google form, I see. Okay. I missed that part, sorry. All right. Anybody else have any other examples that they'd like to share that have worked well for them? I mean, obviously always going over the learning plan is always like, if you are stuck, you can always go back to the learning plan and kind of go over like where you're at with that and everything like that is a starting point to kind of build on what kind of things to talk about and kind of reflect on and everything. Okay, all right. If not, if you think of any other tools, please share them as we go through. All right, going back to my PowerPoint. Okay, oh, I already did this one. All right, so now I wanted to kind of shift gears to group supervision and just kind of talk about what that can look like and how that like can look similar and different. First, just kind of wanted to put a little bit more like descriptions and things like that in regards to what the group supervision can look like for each of you, whether it be now or in the future. So some of you are only doing group supervision and everything like that, where the students are receiving group supervision weekly and everything like that by the field instructor, and that is it and everything. So this is like what's really important if that is the case for you, is that you want to really ensure time to address individual concerns and provide feedback and everything like that. I know that is a challenge that sometimes students have expressed to us as field liaisons in regards to students who are only receiving group supervision, that sometimes that they don't get that like individual kind of that positives, like the strengths and everything like that, and kind of like what they're needing to work on and everything. And a lot of times, sometimes that only comes out in the end at the semester evaluation. And a lot of it is because maybe you as the, as the supervisor don't want to share the feedback during the group and everything like that. But that's why it's really important to make sure that you are having some checkpoint times during the time. One idea may be to like rotate, have rotating schedule where like each student at least once a month gets the first 15 minutes of individual time, and then the last 45 minutes is the group, and then the next week a different student gets that first 15 minutes. So there is that time to kind of check in on that and everything. It may be, you may find out that that student needs more like extra support than the other students in the group and everything like that. So you definitely want to kind of talk about like what are ways that you can build those skills for that individual and everything like that. Just like many of you may be parents and have children, and your kids are you learn that you're going to end up having to parent each one just slightly different, because everyone comes with different strengths and everything like that. So that can similarly play out when you have a group of students, that one student may take up a lot of the time in regards to like bringing a lot of the concerns or a lot of things, and another student barely interacts, and you're not really sure what information they are taking in and everything like that. So making sure you have ability to allow for those quieter students, or students who are struggling with asking questions and everything like that, to bring that to the table and stuff. So then there's people who have, in addition to individual supervision with you. So you may be doing a group supervision with all of your interns, but then also be doing a supervision separately with each student and everything. So then that group supervision is probably going to be way more focused on utilizing time for peer support and learning and everything. And so that can look, and we're going to go through kind of some examples similar to what I did earlier in regards to the group format and everything, utilizing time for that peer support by sharing information and everything. And some of you may have that group, those students all may be in different programs. They may not all be doing the same thing. So they can utilize and kind of gain access to learning about the other different programs and what things look like differently from for different types of clients and different types of services. Also, topic or competency discussion may be a big portion of this, and maybe, utilizing kind of that time period, maybe more like, okay, I'm going to teach this particular skill. We're going to talk about this topic and everything like that during that supervision group, because during the individual time, I'm going over all that other things that I need to go over. And then the last group of you may be part where you're doing the group supervision as the social worker, but then that student is also receiving task supervision from somebody else that is not a social worker, but is in a different program and everything like that, providing that day-to-day task management, anything like that. This is one where you got to really make sure that is clear roles and responsibilities for each of you and everything like that, so that you're aware of like who is making sure that they're going over those, moving through their learning plan, who is responsible for approving their timesheets, who is responsible for going over that skill development on professionalism, or as the social worker, you're obviously know about the competencies, and the task supervisor, my guess, is not a social worker, so they are not as exposed to those social work competencies. And so a good focus might be on those competencies and kind of going through the skill developments that align with their position in that competency-driven kind of group work and everything like that. So those are the three different types of ways that group can show up and everything. So kind of going back to like what we did like for the individuals. The case presentation, obviously, as I said, when we were talking about individual supervision, this is a big component oftentimes with group supervision regarding maybe each week. You have a different student do a presentation on a situation with a client, or actually going through what they're doing with a particular, if they're doing counseling, providing all the different things, talking about all the different kind of treatment modalities, where they're at in the assessment process, kind of going through all that and allowing for the peers, the other students, to kind of give feedback to them. And also those peers are also learning from what has worked and not worked from from that other student and everything. So that's a great way to utilize that peer support and kind of learn from you as you kind of share like feedback for each of those cases and everything. Role playing, or whatever you'd like to call it, if role playing causes that drop in your stomach, is another great way to utilize during the time where one student could be the client, one student could be the social worker, and provide that interaction skills and everything like that. This can be things that are brought up by the students. Like you can, asking them like, hey, what are skills that you feel like you're needing more exposure to and everything like that? And how are ways that we can practice those skills during our time when we're meeting together as a group? And then I did bring up the discussion of an article or a book like maybe you want to go through utilizing a book that's teaching a particular skill or learning about the community and everything like that. And each week you're going to go through a different chapter and everything that allows them to do some independent learning. And maybe you have them utilize that, that supervision form that we use, something like that, similar, like what did they learn from the book each week and everything like that? What are things that they can reflect on their experiences as they're practicing those skills each week and everything. So that's a great way of utilizing kind of outside resources and bringing those into the supervision time. So to expand on what you're able to go over during that group time. Topic driven. So, I've met with quite a few sites, and some of them, the way they use their group format and everything like that is much like topic. So every week or every other week, based on how often the group is happening, it's a particular training topic and stuff. So it could be modalities for, like, we may be talking about cognitive behavioral therapy one week, or we may be talking about mindfulness and everything like that. And those topic drivens can be led by you. They can be people coming from different programs, or the students can lead those. That can be a great way to encourage that growth in the student for being able to teach the skill and everything. And it helps them to deep dive and do some research on the topic and everything, and able to present that to the other students and everything, and just kind of, as an additional peer support and everything. Topic driven also could be basically this is the way we're going to talk about paperwork and filling out specific assessments and things like that, how to do that, and everything like that. And so then maybe you start with the topic and end with a role play where you utilize actually playing out what would it be like to actually give the assessment now that you've learned how to do the assessment. So that's some ideas of utilizing that during group supervision. And then skill-driven training is similar to the topic-driven in regards to kind of, learning how to do the assessment, learning how to do different things like that, and just kind of really gaining that insight and everything like that on a particular skill, but in the peer, along their peers. And and the great thing about students, I mean, I get so much great feedback on the group work that they do with other peers. They really do like hearing what the other students are doing. They like hearing the other perspectives, even when it's from different trainings or backgrounds, different schools and everything like that, providing that discussion in regards to what that will look like for them based on where they're coming from and everything. But I find that the students really appreciate that time and everything. So it's that balance back for the individual and group, being able to give giving that feedback. So I want to take a moment and kind of put out there again, for those of you that have provided groups or are currently providing groups, group work, whether it be to students or through providing support to an LCSW group or anything like that, are there other things that have worked well for you in kind of developing that skill and being able to build during that group time? While everybody's thinking about that, I got a couple things in the chat. Aubrey said, from my previous question, when students ask me questions throughout the week, I make a list to review at group supervision so that others can benefit from the answers. Yeah, that's a great thing, because sometimes these students, if they've got the student that has a difficult time knowing what to ask and what questions to bring to supervision and everything like that, hearing what other students have asked, or some students are just afraid to ask questions and everything like that. They afraid that they're going to look incompetent, or that you're yes, I know you went over this when I first came, but like I don't remember how to do it, but I'm afraid to ask because I know I should know this by now, kind of thing. So that's a great way to kind of like just, hey, this came up, let's talk about it and everything like that. You may also have a question and everything. Yolanda, with her 50 years of experience, I have used students within group supervision to audit each other's therapy styles, act as moderators, critique each other's work. Yeah, that's great. And that can be helpful with writing things too, because I know some of the students that like, I know that some of the challenges sometimes the like writing reports and everything, like getting that professional like assessments in or case management notes and all those things and everything like that, like sharing a note and kind of giving feedback is a great way to utilize that. And I mean, obviously you want to ask permission from the student first. Like if they had a bad experience, you don't want to like throw them under the bus by putting it out there in front of everybody without talking to them first. But I find it the way, if you talk to the students about like, hey, like this was a great question. This was a great learning. Is this okay for us to share in group this next week and everything like that? Because I think other students can learn from it too. Oliver shared, I'll do a check-in question about what they are proud of, how they grew during the week, and if there is anything that they want to make sure we have time to talk about when I'll end with an intention that they want to bring into the week. Yeah, that's a great reflection, good positive way to end and everything like that on the strengths of like, hey, we've done hard things this week and we've got through them. What are we moving forward with this week and everything like that? And that's like a good way of practicing self-care, of recognizing where we're at and everything during that time. And so those are great things. Anybody else have any other so we can learn so much from each other in our experiences? Nobody else? Anybody want to unmute and share anything? No. All right. I have a student present, then let the others in the group with their feedback, then I add mine at the end. Yeah, that's like great for the case presentation component and everything like that can be a great way for learning and everything. So thanks, Meg. All right. So I'm coming to kind of the like an end, and what I wanted to make sure that I wanted to like share with everybody and everything, and just kind of also that socialworkstoolbox.com didn't do a hyperlink on here and everything like that, but the socialworktoolbox.com is basically one that I was shared with you that I found that had a lot of different kind of different ways of tools and reflections and things like that. I shared the process recording template, the supervision template and everything like that. I want to bring up this book that I brought up before in our orientations and everything that I think is a really excellent book with lots of great tools and everything like that. I know it's a little bit more pricey, so I wish that we could afford to buy it all for you. I think it'd be a great tool and everything like that. But utilize this Learning to Teach, Teaching to Learn, a guide for social work field education. It has some really great tools and dealing with a lot of different things. What I wanted to like end with as far as like talking with and kind of hearing from all of you are what are some of the challenges or things that have really worked well to kind of like really engage students, because I know what I've been finding more and more with students and everything like that is, anxiety is real and everything like that, and students are feeling it in all different ways and everything like that. And what are some of the ways and tools or things that you've done that like help kind of help them to be able to like reflect on their experience and everything like that, and like balance that that the anxiety that they're feeling about whether it's just everything that's going on, what they're getting exposed to and everything like that, but then also kind of going through kind of like afraid to try these new schools. A lot of students are talking about imposter syndrome, not feeling confident in like being able to do this because this is new to them and everything. What are some of the things that each of you have found that's been helpful to kind of like gaining the confidence of the students and everything like that, and just this balance between like their self-care and kind of building on that skills of professionalism and skill building? Does anybody have some things that have worked really well for them? Because I know that's for real for a lot of you and the students that you're working with.
I think one of the things is just being accessible and giving them an opportunity just to be able to ask questions and not feel afraid to ask questions, and let them know that we're humans. We learn things every single day, even as ourselves as the supervisors in this field, that when we learn a technique and we learn a modality, that there's other ways of learning how to like implement it, and just opening the accessibility and just giving them that opportunity to be able to be vulnerable and come in and say, hey, I don't know if this is working or if I'm doing it right. And then giving them that space, giving them that agency to do so.
Yeah, 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 no, that's great. That's great.
I think also framing it as like this entire year is a process. I'm not expecting you to come in with certain skills. We're going to develop that throughout the year. I'll give you feedback on like what I'm seeing. I want you to give me feedback on like what you're feeling so we can reconcile those two things, and keeping checklists of like, this is what we've already worked on. Show me that you can do it. And if you can't do it, then let's go back and practice it again until we can get you there.
Yeah, 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 it's great, Nancy. I see Daniela wrote in the chat, appropriate self-disclosure. As supervisor can help them feel less isolated. Yeah, just, I mean, because I mean, all of you have had to go through grad school and kind of get through and be new at your field and in your job and everything like that. Like sharing some vulnerability and everything that can help them to be willing to share and open up and know that like, hey, like I am not alone out here. You've had this experience and things too. Mary put in doing things with or together and reflecting after providing feedback, making space for them to build rapport and camaraderie with others in the building. Yeah, I know. And that's especially a challenge for those students who are doing a good portion of their time virtually and everything like that, that it can feel isolating, and coming up with creative ways to making sure there's connection and stuff. I can't remember the organization, but one placement that was primarily doing telehealth work and everything, I really appreciated like every day they had like a chat, they like a check-in and everything like that in the morning on a Zoom call or whatever, and everything to kind of like touch base, make sure everybody was like on the same page for what they were going to be doing throughout the day, and then had an open chat that they could interact with at any given time and everything like that, to make sure that there are those connections and stuff. For those of you who are doing telehealth, just some ideas and making sure that students do feel that connection when it's hard, or even people doing hybrid where there's not as many people in the office all the time at the same time and everything like that, just being aware of those, or access to support and everything, or students who are in schools that are providing services that aren't at your main location and everything, and making sure that they have connection at the school with where they can receive support is great. Being genuine with them. I told my intern this was my first year being a supervisor, and letting them know I'm human, so I don't expect them to be perfect, because I surely am not. Appreciate that, telling them up front and everything. And also, you know what I mean, being willing, and then hopefully you'll be open to like accepting feedback and everything, like asking, and taking time on occasion throughout that supervision time, saying, hey, just checking in, like, are there things that like I can be doing differently to help support you and everything like that. I had a student and a field instructor show a great example of that in one of my meetings this week, in regards to the student had an experience with another colleague that was really helpful to their growth in their clinical skills, and brought that to the attention, like, this really worked well for me and everything like that. Is there any way we can add this to like a repertoire of our time and stuff? And the supervisor was open to that, and is changing kind of how they do things to help that student grow and everything. But I know sometimes that takes vulnerability on your part to be willing to hear what the student has back to say, and having that safe space for them to feel open to say those things. I allow the student to research a topic and present it to the agency. This helps boost their confidence. Yeah, I've heard that with other students and organizations too. Like maybe as a second semester presentation thing, like, whether it be like they're presenting on their programs things, or if it's on a particular skill building and things like that, giving the student the ability to really kind of gain that extra exposure and things like that to the leading it and everything like that. And because that's how we learned as supervisors, is watching our supervisors often, everything like that, outside of trainings like this and everything. That is a great way for them to learn that skill of like leading and everything. So all right, let's see. Yes, but I normally send it to them after she provides. Oh, that was something, sorry. Research the topic presenting. All right. We've gotten some great examples, and I hope you've gotten some good resources. I'm encouraging my interns to lead a workshop and provide a huge nudge to prep for their evaluation of practice assignment. Yes, that is a great thing. Yeah, for utilizing that evaluation of practice assignment as a way to present back to the organization is a great way for them to learn and kind of put out those skills that they have gained and everything. So I'm glad that those are great examples and everything. All right, well, that's kind of closing up my, Catherine shared the Behavioral Health Workforce Center has 3 free asynchronous trainings on general supervisory skills. Oh, that's great. Thanks for sharing, Catherine. So everybody needs and gains those skills and everything. It was great that you're there. Hopefully everybody got the links. Otherwise, if not, we can attach them in a future email and everything like that to provide that information to everybody. Any other last questions that you have for me or additional feedback? No? Okay. All right, Pam, did you have anything that you wanted me to say in closing, or you want to say in closing?
Yes, I just wanted to thank everyone for attending. Thank Carol very much for that timely presentation. I hope that you all got resources that you can utilize. We will be sending out an evaluation next week. Your feedback really helps us. That's how we found out that a lot of people were requesting this particular topic. So we will be sending out evaluation next week. CEUs will be processed. It may take a couple weeks for you to get your certificate, but you can definitely count this if you're looking to use it towards your licensing hours this year. Thank you once again. Thank you for your attendance.
Thanks,
Thank
everybody.
you.